3-3, the final score. Was it one of the Premier League greats? That would be debated. Well, let's ask you, Sue, was it?
I was definitely up there. It was a great game of football to watch. And, you know, I think in the first half, it could have been more for Manchester City. They had opportunities. Haaland obviously missing a chance that you would expect him to normally score. I think Doku, Alvarez hit the woodwork. So, you know, there was lots of opportunities. But I think when you saw Manchester City against Tottenham, you thought there's going to be goals. Obviously, both teams very capable of scoring. And you just wondered how were Tottenham going to line up. But I think we knew how Tottenham were going to line up because Postecoglou doesn't change his philosophy. So I think we knew there were going to be goals. So yeah, certainly exciting, entertaining. But there's been some absolute crackers, haven't there?
They seem to involve Tottenham and Man City. I'm thinking of the Tottenham game against Chelsea, then the City game at Stamford Bridge. 3 cracking games involving these two protagonists. It was a controversial ending, wasn't it? But did that divert, perhaps, from the fact that Manchester City really were the architects of their own? They shouldn't be relying on that with the way they played, especially in that first half.
No, I know it's something that we're going to talk about later on Ref Watch, so don't want to sort of talk about it too much. But the game itself was brilliant. There is a vulnerability with Manchester City at the moment that is a little bit unexplainable. Whether it's a mentality of the players, whether at times it was too easy for them in the first half and they thought that Tottenham couldn't compete against them and they took the foot off the gas a little bit, perhaps, not too sure. Whether it's just the players not feeling that they're at the top elite level at the moment, and we often say that about Manchester City, is that they perform from February onwards and they're an absolute machine when they get into that rhythm. But take nothing away from Spurs. You've got to dig deep, you've got to ride your luck, you've got to stay within a game. Postecoglou made a change at half-time, bringing Højbjerg on, and it made a big difference to the team. It made them more organised, more solid. But you've got to tip your hat to both teams in the way that they play. It's great for Premier League football. It's a great advert for the game when you've got two teams who go toe-to-toe against each other and don't come away from their values. Don't get me wrong, Manchester City have a tiny bit because we just don't expect them to concede as many chances. But that's credit to Spurs. So it just has that effect where you go, well, both teams have gone for the game, which is great to watch.
Yeah, Gary Neville was alluding to it during the commentary, and I'm trying to get the right word to fit for it. Is it complacency?
I don't think so. I think we've praised Manchester City earlier on in the season and said about their hunger for more. We've said that obviously after winning the treble, how are they going to respond? And no, I don't think there's a lack of complacency. I think you can look at, like you said, conceding goals in the sort of last few games, maybe being a little bit vulnerable on the counter. You could say, well, is that because John Stones isn't playing? We know that he does that role so well, that hybrid role, protecting the play alongside Rodri. Is it because they've played against sides that are very good on the counter? The likes of Liverpool, the likes of Chelsea, the likes of Tottenham, they're really good when the ball's turned over. They've got so much pace going forward. So I think that could be... and in that first half, they could have been out of sight. So it literally could have been small margin, or it was small margins.
We'll get on to Tottenham in a bit, but let's go back to City as well. Right, OK. It's a double-edged sword, this one, Sue, isn't it? The lack of the clinical edge at the moment is not something we normally associate with Manchester City, but we are seeing it at the moment. So what's the issue?
I just think it is just small margins. I think, you know, Haaland going through, you expect him to score. I think hitting the post, Alvarez, Doku, it was just sort of unlucky. And they could have been completely out of sight in that first half. So I mentioned earlier about their, trying to stop counter-attacks. That maybe is something that's being worked on, getting those players back fit. But I don't think we ever need to worry about Manchester City. I always think that they do come stronger as the season goes on. They've obviously still got Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best players in the world, to come back fit. And I actually thought yesterday, in that first half, they played well. You know, the way that the wide players, Doku and Foden, came in to mark Spurs, Porro and Udogie, so sort of stopped them from playing out from the back or playing through the middle where they wanted to go. So I thought that worked well. They were obviously pressing Tottenham and they were making mistakes at the back. So I thought there was a lot of positive things from a Manchester City perspective. Yes, I'm sure Pep Guardiola will be frustrated that he's conceded another 3 goals. But at the same time, I don't think we ever need to worry about Manchester City.
But it is.
The score was 3-3, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They scored 3 goals.
Yeah, as well, yeah.
I know, but we're talking about them being shot shy.
I mean, they could have had another 4 in the first half alone, couldn't they?
I understand that, but there's an element of we expect Manchester City to be so robotic and so perfect every single time. Is that?
And what's wrong with that?
Yeah, very true. But we're watching it and we're thinking, we expect perfection from them. Well, they've had an off day in front of goal. It's not often that you'll have 2 or 3 that'll have an off day in front of goal. But they've still scored 3 goals within a game.
Is the other end more worrying? It's 10 goals conceded in 4 games now. Is that as simple as Stones?
No, not necessarily, but I think it brings a better balance to them. I don't think Akanji does it as well as John Stones does it. But then everyone else has still got to do their jobs in and around it. Nathan Ake's been one of the best defenders in the Premier League since he signed for Manchester City. I think he's been outstanding. You don't really see Ake get beat at the back post, out-jumped, just mistimes his jumps, gets over-jumped, like that lack of concentration at the back post, knowing where the player is, opening your body out. That comes with pressure at the end of a game, and that's credit to Tottenham for putting them under pressure and putting them in a position where they feel very uncomfortable. Not many teams do that. I know we're going to talk about this later on, but Liverpool against Fulham went there and made it uncomfortable. Tottenham have gone to Manchester City and made it very, very uncomfortable in the second half. And I just wanted to touch on the point before that you made about complacency. I just think teams have got better in the Premier League. And we're talking about Manchester City being complacent. I think the level's gone up. I think the level of management from Postecoglou has improved Spurs hugely. The game management in a game of that magnitude, they're not sat back 11 men behind the ball. They're still committing players forward. That changes how Manchester City have to approach a game. I think Chelsea were much improved in that 4-4 game in the way that they went after Manchester City. Long gone are the days now where people are going, we can't get a result against Liverpool and Manchester City or Arsenal. We've got to sit in, we've got to put 10 men behind the ball. Them days are gone. People are going, well, we'd rather get beat 3 or 4 and having a go, but actually we're not getting beat 3 or 4. We can actually cause these a problem now because we believe we can get something out of a game.
And I think sometimes that is the case. You've got to praise the teams that Manchester City have played against recently, the likes of Liverpool.
We will get on to Tottenham and I can't see how a team under Pep Guardiola could ever be complacent because he never would be. So we've discussed that. We've explored it, which is great. We talked about the absence of Stones. The absence of Rodri is well documented and how that impacts Manchester City. He is now suspended along with Grealish. And next up, we haven't got our smugometer out yet this morning, but we will at some stage. But next up is Aston Villa away on Wednesday. How big an impact could that have?
Yeah, well, I think we spoke, didn't we? I think you can just see that when he does play, how many times they win when he doesn't play, how many times they don't. And we said that when he was suspended for those couple of games where they're just not the same. He's so key. I think the question was asked, who's the most important, Rodri or Haaland? And they're both important for different reasons, aren't they? But I just think what Rodri does for the side, the way that he does protect that back line, how he senses danger, the quality that he has on the ball, the way that he can build play from that area, is absolute top class. So, of course, he's going to be a big loss. But is it an opportunity for others to step in and do a job? So, yeah, it's frustrating, I think, for Manchester City to lose him, and it's going to be a huge game against Aston Villa.
Yeah. 1 point on Liverpool, 2 points on Arsenal now. The march to the title could well be decided in March. Anfield on the weekend of the 9th. Home to Arsenal on the weekend of the 30th. See what I did there about March?
Yeah, very
good. You like that? How much of a gap can they allow those two teams to get away from them? Are they still very much your favourites for the title?
I still think they are favourites, just given the history of what they're about and what they're like. Jurgen Klopp spoke recently about how December and the New Year period is the toughest in world football in the Premier League. And I think there's a lot to happen within this period for all three teams, and probably the three teams in and around it, 4th, 5th and 6th. I think there's plenty to happen. We'll get a true indication of where the league is at come the middle of January, the end of January. Manchester City could be 3 or 4 points ahead. They could be 4 or 5 behind. We just don't know because of that period of, we don't know on injuries, suspensions, of what's going to happen within this time frame. We've already seen a lot of injuries already early on in the season, so there's still a lot that's going to happen in this December period before we even get to March. So it's going to be very difficult to say what's going to be the position that the teams are going to be in come then.
Let's turn our attention to Tottenham. They weren't the victors, but do they get all the spoils here as far as the plaudits and pundits are concerned? Are they loving Ange Ball again after the recent results?
I think they've always loved Ange Ball. I think even when the results dropped off, I think they just enjoy the football and the way of playing and his philosophy and how he is and how he has brought a breath of fresh air to the Premier League, his honest assessment of games. And he said at the end of the game, we didn't do well in the first half in terms of we could have got completely blown away by Manchester City, but they stayed in the game, and that was a huge positive. And you know, the way that Tottenham play, they're always going to create opportunities, and missing so many players and key players to that side, he's continued to play the same way. And you can... You know, the question everyone kept asking him, are you going to play this same philosophy, this same style? You can still play the same philosophy, but tweak things slightly, and that's what he did in that second half when you mentioned Højbjerg coming on. Just tightened it up a little bit.
Yeah, the talk on commentary at one point was yes, entertainment, but where does bravery and naivety cross? There's a very thin line at times, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm still a bit torn on that argument, because I've watched Liverpool go to Manchester City and struggle in the first half and make changes at half-time, and nothing's ever been said about the way Liverpool play. I've watched Manchester City play the way that they play at home at Anfield against Liverpool and struggle in a game and then come back into a game. That you're going to come under pressure at certain times in games, and you're going to have to accept that at certain times you're going to get caught out, because that's the way that you're going to play. The big thing is that if you come in at half-time and give the right team talk and tell the players how they can see little things that are happening on the pitch that they've seen from higher up. We know the analysis that are involved in the game now. They'll be seeing things, passing information on to the players. If you can improve that, you will get a massive difference in the way that you play. And I just think from Tottenham's point of view, they've stuck to their beliefs and continued to do that in the second half and got the rewards from it. So, yes, at the first half, were they at their peak? No, they weren't. But second half, that was as good a performance I've seen at the Etihad for a long, long time.
And I think if you've got that belief and you've got that philosophy, even though some players get injured, it's going to be then difficult to go into the changing room, isn't it, as a manager, and go, oh, actually, I know this is what I wanted you to do, but now because we've lost a few players, I'm going to change it.
And everyone keeps on saying we're playing the wrong way. I'm going to change my beliefs because I've got a few people saying, oh, you're not doing the right thing here.
Yeah, and the players would then go,
You've got that job by doing what you believe in. 100%. Continue to do what you believe in, because that is what's got you in the seat.
Absolutely.